Hey guys, so I said on Twitter I'd be making a video where I show off my record collection. So that is this video. I got into record collection from my dad. He kind of showed me what all's what, and then I just went and dove face first into the into the hobby. I don't have as much as a lot of people, but the stuff that I have I like. So kind of want to talk about music and talk about what I got. So hopefully this will be a fun one. So please excuse the lighting. If I have the curtains open, then you get the glare, but if the curtains are closed, then it's too dark, so we're just going to have to fight it, and I'll have to kind of finagle things around. But we're not going to start off with this. We're actually going to start off with my 3 box sets that I have. First up is Great Men of Music, Franz Joseph Haydn. It's a classical piece. This is basically a compilation of a couple different chamber orchestras performing the music of Haydn. I got this when Hastings, which was a multimedia retailer, went out of business. They had some massive sales on their vinyls and everything, so there's a couple stores in the area, and I kept hitting them up nearly every day, and that's where a lot of this collection comes from. So as you can see, the tag's on it, $3, and it was marked down like 75%, so I walked away with probably less than $1 or something. so can't go wrong with that, and everyone needs to have a little bit of classical music in their collection. Next up is my personal favorite band, Dream Theater. This is Dramatic Turn of Events. Dream Theater, amazing prog metal band. They're kind of the main prog metal band that if you listen to any band, it's going to be either Dream Theater or Tool. So this was their first album with their current drummer, Mike Mangini, after Mike Portnoy left the band. Here's the actual album cover. So this is a box set that has, I think it's, 3 vinyl? So the vinyl unfortunately doesn't actually fit into the sleeves, so they have to have them out. So 1, 2, 3, 2. So that's two LP set. Also has a turntable cover. Came with a CD as well, which is no longer in here, as well as a lithograph, which I have somewhere. This album is, in my opinion, their last amazing album. I was a little skeptical when Mike Mangini came in because Mike Portnoy is such a staple of Dream Theater. Was one of the founding members in the band for 20-something years. But I think Mike Mangini did a really good job on this album. And all around, this is a good, solid, a little bit more kind of prog metalcore, I guess, than their older stuff. But I'd say it's definitely worth a listen. So next, the final box that I have is Halo 5 Guardian soundtrack. Once again, Hastings sale, because when I first saw this, when it came out, it was like $70 or $80. So, but after the sale, I was able to get it for around $20. Halo 5, I haven't even finished the game yet. It's a little meh, in my opinion, compared to all the previous Halos. But it comes with a score for Jameson Locke's theme, so that's pretty cool. Came with a download card for the album, and then the album itself. It's actually not even the full album on vinyl. It's just a couple selections on 2 LPs, and then came with 2 CDs worth of music as well. The soundtrack was alright. It's the first I think it was the first soundtrack not done by Marty O'Donnell. It was done by Kazuma Jinoichi. It was alright. A little bit more cinematic than the previous Halos. But yeah. So moving away from the box sets, we have... actually, let's go to singles first. Let's get all these out of the way. So we have Deep Purple, Black Knight, and Speed King. Pretty alright. Wilco Might, which is also, Wilco's kind of hit or miss for me. This one is it's decent. I think you got it for like $3. Can't go wrong. Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast. This is obviously not an original, and actually, if you open and show it off, it doesn't even have the old RCA singles cut out. It has a regular pin. The Number of the Beast, and then the B-side is Remember Tomorrow, recorded live in Italy. but Number of the Beast is probably my favorite Iron Maiden song. This is from the I Fight Dragons Kickstarter for their album, The Near Future, which we'll be getting to, which I backed on. And this is a single of a song called Bernadette. In my opinion, it's the weakest of all the I Fight Dragons songs, and it's also on a picture disc. But it's signed by the band. It's kind of cool to have. Those are my singles. Here we go. So going on to actual albums. So this first one is The Similitude of a Dream by the Neil Morse Band. Neil Morse is one of my favorite songwriters, and it's prog rock, Christian prog rock, but this whole album is just absolutely amazing. Probably my favorite Neil Morse album. This is on in a Tri-Gate fold. And I don't remember the guy's name, but this painting is by the same guy who did the album art for like the early Genesis stuff, and I think some of the Yes stuff as well. It's honestly one of my favorite albums of all time from my favorite songwriter of all time. Neil Morse Band has Mike Portnoy from Extreme Theater on drums, Randy George on bass, Eric Gillette on lead guitar, Bill Hubauer on keyboards and vocals, and then of course Neil Morse on guitar, vocals, and more keyboards. Highly recommend checking this album out. You won't find it on Spotify because Neil has his own streaming service, but you can find this on YouTube. So yeah, this is a 2 CD, 3 or 4 LP album, so it's quite a doozy. But they weren't content with just doing one. This is the follow-up album, The Great Adventure, which continues the storyline. It's a concept album. It continues the storyline off of Similitude. It's not as good in my opinion, but I think that's mostly because Similitude was such an amazing album. So I highly recommend checking this one out as well if you check out Similitude. And that will give you probably nearly 4 hours of music to listen to, so have fun with that. It's amazing progressive rock. Highly recommend for like fans of old Genesis or Spock's Beard. Neil Morse used to be in Spock's Beard, so stuff like that. Highly recommend it. Okay, here we go. I have to figure out how to do this with minimal editing. Pull my chair up, which I'm putting all the stuff we already listened to on. Here we go. Failure, The Heart is a Monster. Failure is another one of my all-time favorite bands. They went on hiatus in the late 90s, and they didn't reform until, I think it was 2013. They did a reunion tour, and then they put out this album on a Kickstarter, or might have been Pledge Music or whatever that was called. This album is alright. My favorite track is actually a reworking of an old track, like an old demo track that they had. So the song's called Pegging the Carpet. But there's a couple other good tracks on here. Hot Traveler is good. Counterfeit Sky is pretty good. Highly recommended if you like space rock, although Failure has some better albums other than this. But space rock, kind of grungy, psychedelic grunge kind of stuff. Coming off of that album, this was a limited release, Failure Fantastic Planet Live. So Fantastic Planet is their, hands down, by far, you ask anybody, it is their best album. It was released in 94 or 95, somewhere around there. It was their final album before they broke up. But when they went back and started touring again, they did the whole album live and recorded it. This was a limited release, so you won't be able to find it anywhere. It has tour shots of the band. This one's signed because it's Pledge Music exclusive, and yeah, I'll drop money for signed things. But I highly recommend checking out the original Fantastic Planet album. It's just absolutely amazing. Gonna move my mic a little bit. Because I'm noticing my mic is behind me, which is probably not the best audio-wise. So my condolences, but you're getting this one with minimal editing. Next up, we have a double album from Demon Hunter. They're like a metal band, Christian metal band. It's all right. This is their latest releases, but they release these simultaneously. This is War and Peace, is what they're called. I don't know, pretty generic. It's not their best stuff, but if you like kind of metalcore stuff, go ahead and give it a listen. It's pretty alright. And this one is opened, and I have listened to it, I just haven't pulled the plastic off of it. Alright, next up, we have a classic. Opiate by Tool. It's Tool's first release. It's compared to the rest of their catalog, it's alright. Obviously, Hush is kind of a staple now. But I mean, it's alright. I think I picked this one up for like $7 from Hastings. Obviously, 10,000 Days is better, Lateralis is better. Actually, I have not listened to the latest album because I'm scared. I don't want to be disappointed, so I figure it's probably better if I never listen to it. Alright, so next we have some stuff that, well actually this is just one. Oh no, this one I got from Hastings, never mind. We have the fabulous Les Paul and Mary Ford. Obviously Les Paul, known for the Gibson Les Paul guitar, but in addition to being an inventor, he was also a killer jazz guitarist, and he was, for a brief time, married to Mary Ford. It's alright. It's an old album. When was this? Columbia Records. Yeah, it's an old one. And even it's probably just like basically a best of. Yeah, Les Paul, great guitarist. Sadly no longer with us, but he's the reason why music is today, honestly. He invented multi-track recording, which is used everywhere now. I probably should have grabbed some water before I did this, but we're going dry. Kansas, The Prelude Implicit. Kansas is my dad's all-time favorite band, and for good reason. They're one of the early prog rock bands, but this is their latest as of recording this album, although they have a new one on the way. It was going to be released by now, but apparently the facility that held all the CDs burned down, so they're having to repress everything. But this is also the first album that they had since 2001, I believe. This was released in 2017, I think. When was it? 2016. It's a good album. If you listen to the album before this, which was Not Always, Never the Same, Somewhere to Elsewhere, and then listen to this, you can kind of hear how much production has gone. But it's a good album, and I'd recommend it. Next we have this is actually the first vinyl I ever bought. Chimp Spanner, All Roads Lead Here. Chimp Spanner is the moniker of the guitarist Paul Ortiz. It's gent, so instrumental prog metal, gent kind of stuff. This is actually an EP that he put out with a couple songs. And then so you have it's really 4 songs, but one of the songs is broken into 3 parts on one side, and then the other side is remixes of his song Super Retrogression. Yeah, first album or first vinyl I ever bought, so I'm pretty happy with this one, and also I quite like the color on it. It's not quite completely clear. It's got a little bit of a yellowish green tinge to it. But I'd recommend, if you're going to check out Chimp Spanner, check out his other albums. This isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's probably the worst that he's put out. Still good, but yeah. Next we have a band I really wish I could get into. I have tried to get into them so many times, and I bought this album expecting to like it. I wouldn't say that I hate it, but I just cannot get into it. Mastodon, Crack the Sky. Mastodon is kind of a different, a different brand of progressive metal, a little bit more on the extreme side, and it's not a bad album by any stretch of the imagination. It's a very good album. I just don't like it, and I can't explain why. But if you like a little more extreme metal, but also a little bit more avant-garde, I'd recommend checking out some Mastodon. Sorry about that. I was streaming for 3 hours before I started recording this, so my throat's a little little jacked. But next up, we have some stuff that was given to me, or 2 albums that were given to me by my grandmother. First off, we have In Flight by George Benson. George Benson was a kind of poppier jazz guitarist. I mean, he's still around, so I shouldn't say was. It's all right. Yeah, that's all really I can say about it. It's poppy jazz, old poppy jazz guitar. And then we also have The Soul of Flamenco. It's a compilation of flamenco songs. Yeah, it's always interesting to listen to every once in a while. Alright, going back to the stuff that I bought, we have Spinal Tap, the soundtrack. So it's technically called Spinal Tap from the original motion picture soundtrack. This is Spinal Tap. If you've ever watched Spinal Tap, you know how ridiculous. It's a mockumentary about a band in the 80s. It's not for everyone, but I quite enjoy it. So this is kind of original music from that. It's all ridiculous. You have songs like Tonight I'm Gonna Rock You Tonight. You probably remember that one from Guitar Hero 2. Big Bottom, Sex Farm, Stonehenge is a classic. Yeah, it's all absolutely bonkers stuff. And then, of course, it's None Blacker. That's a reference to the movie. Next up, we have Bit Brigade Mega Man 2. Bit Brigade is a cover band. They do kind of straightforward, shreddy covers of old NES and SNES songs, and obviously this one's Mega Man 2. But live, I highly recommend it if you ever have a chance to see them live. It's amazing because they actually have someone speed running the game that they're playing. So I got this later, but yeah, the first time I saw them, they did Mega Man 2. It's really, really fun stuff. Came on a blue vinyl with a saw blade in the middle. What I like about it is it's not really overproduced. It sounds like the band got in a room and performed the music, and that's all you get, which I quite like. It sounds a lot more real to me. So yeah, Bit Brigade. Highly recommend checking them out. They also have Metroid, Castlevania. I think they did Metal Slug or something. But yeah, recommend it. Gavin Harrison cheating the polygraph. So Gavin Harrison was the drummer for the band Porcupine Tree, and then later on became the drummer for the Pineapple Thief and King Crimson, and so yeah, he's probably my favorite drummer of all time. But he made this album, Cheating the Polygraph. Why is this stuck together? Whatever. It is a big band jazz rendition of Porcupine Tree songs, mostly. Which shouldn't work, but it works beautifully well. So you have such as Sound of Music, Heart Attack in LA by Cheating the Polygraph, Mother and Child Divided, Futile. It's big band, but has this weird psychedelic prog side to it. So if you like Porcupine Tree and you didn't know that this happened, I recommend checking it out. So speaking of Porcupine Tree, we are into the Steven Wilson section. So Steven Wilson was basically the band leader for the band Porcupine Tree. He broke Porcupine Tree up to go start doing his own solo stuff. And I'm obviously quite the fan. Can you see it? This is Steven Wilson. I'm a big fan of Steven's. So he had 3 solo albums before this one. This is Hand Cannot Erase. It's my favorite solo Steven Wilson. Oh, everything's falling. Solo Steven Wilson album. It's an absolute masterpiece from the beginning to the end. There is no bad moments. This particular album had Marco Miniman on drums and Guthrie Govan on lead guitar. And Guthrie Govan has some of his best solos ever in this album. Highly recommend it. You can check it out on Spotify. It is a mix of prog rock and pop and rock and electronic, and there is something in this album for everybody. So I recommend checking out Hand Cannot Erase. Continuing with Steven Wilson, we have Transcendence, which is kind of like his solo best of album. I picked this up at a Steven Wilson show. It's all right. I mean, it's a best of album, so it has some songs from previous albums. Transcendence is from the Hand Cannot Erase album. He has a recording of the song Lazarus, which is a Porcupine Tree song, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So you could start here and listen to a best of album. Sorry, everything's falling on me. But I would recommend checking out one of his full albums, especially Hand Cannot Erase, instead of starting at this. And especially, do not start at this album. This is possibly the most divisive album I have in my entire collection. So this is his, as of recording this, latest album. He has a new one coming out relatively soon. But this is called To The Bone. On this album, he basically went full-on ABBA, Cher, pop. It has some proggy moments in it, but it's a pop album. And if you like pop, that's your, hey, more to you. And there are some good songs on this. I'd recommend the songs Pariah, with an Israeli singer named Nanette. She's amazing. His song Detonation it's honestly, it's the proggiest song, so if you like prog, check out that song. But compared to all of his other stuff, this is the most divisive, and it's hard to like this album on its own. Compared to everything that he's done, it's an interesting and fascinating piece of history, musical history, but it's not his best work. But you know what is his best work? This one. This is Porcupine Tree's Dead Wing. This is my personal favorite Porcupine Tree album, and it's my personal favorite album of all time. This was their second to last album that they put out. So there's Dead Wing, Fear of a Blank Planet, The Incident. Yeah, so second to last album they put out. But once again, no bad moments on this amazing album from beginning to end. I don't have one of the discs in it, or records in it, because it's actually still sitting on the turntable, because I listen to it on a very regular basis. Yeah, Dead Wing by Porcupine Tree. It's psychedelic prog rock, has some metal influences in it. It's a very depressing album. It's based off a screenplay that Steven wrote that never got made. But all of Steven's stuff is typically very depressing. Dead Wing is no different. I don't have it, but if you want the most depressing Porcupine Tree album, In Absentia. It's the album before this one. It is the most depressing album of all time. But I highly recommend it. Porcupine Tree, Dead Wing. So we got some more stuff that I got from my grandma. I grabbed all this stuff kind of haphazardly at random. So George Benson, Breezin'. It's jazz guitar. I like jazz guitar. I understand that not everybody is. Honestly, the people that like jazz guitar are probably either old or other guitarists. We have B.B. King live on stage. B.B. King, obviously, of course, one of the most influential blues guitarists ever. Absolute killer musician. Unfortunately, this particular disc skips pretty badly. It's pretty damaged. But yeah, if you know blues, you probably know who B.B. King is. And once again, if you know blues, you probably know who Albert King is. Another amazing blues guitarist. Not quite as renowned as B.B. King or like Stevie Ray Vaughan, but still an amazing guitarist. Once again, this one still in the plastic, but it has been opened. Yeah, it's a good album. This one I still have yet to actually listen to. So that... Oh, hold on. My CDs, or my LPs are falling down. So, here we go. ZZ Hill, Down Home. Haven't listened to it, so I couldn't tell you what it sounds like. And that's where I'll leave that. So these next two albums are by a band called Anakin. So we have Random Accessed Memories and Celestial Frequency Shifter. This is their first release. This is their second full length, and it's their third release. They have an EP in between these two, which is actually my favorite release of theirs. But it's very wall of noise, post-grunge, space rock. It's hard to put them into a category. Very fuzzed out guitars, very robotic vocals, auto-tuned vocals. But it's really good chill out music, I'd say. So, Anakin, highly recommend them. Next up we have Dark Future by Entheos. So Entheos is a, I don't know, progressive deathcore band, is I guess what you could call them. Started by the drummer Naveen K and the bassist Evan Brewer. They also have Travis Levere from Scale the Summit playing guitars, and I cannot remember the vocalist's name. 1 second. Cheney Crab. So it's not for everyone. It's extreme metal, all growly vocals, but it's very complex stuff. Try to get this back in here. Come on. There we go. Okay. Incredibly complex. If you like metal, I'd recommend checking them out. You may have already seen them. They were on tour with Rings of Saturn, which is when I picked this one up. So, yeah. Next up, we have possibly my favorite emo album of all time, from my favorite emo band of all time. Tiny Moving Parts. Swell is the album. And it's not emo as in like tight black pants and black hair covering one eye emo. This is Midwest emo. So bunch of normal dudes complaining about how they can't get, a girlfriend. But it's a killer album. It's a trio. They're all family. It's the drummer and the bassist are brothers, and their cousin is the guitarist and vocalist. Highly recommend it. Very twinkly math rock guitars. Kind of depressing but hopeful lyrics. This particular album comes with a little booklet of like photos from them as a band. So that was a good shot of the band. So I'd recommend. I wouldn't say that it's for everyone, but I would say that everyone should check it out. It's, I don't know, if you want to feel depressed but hopeful, I'd recommend listening to this album. Unfortunately, this is one I had to buy at full price much later from a store in North Idaho, but it's a good album. Next up, we have Aquarius by Haydn. So Haydn is a prog metal band coming out of England. They're basically British Dream Theater. That's how I'd call them. Aquarius is a concept album about a guy who finds a mermaid in a lab or something. That's really all I could say about it. It is, however, my favorite Haydn album. The Mountain comes in as a very close second, but Aquarius, hands down, is the first one. I think it's also their first full-length album. And, of course, being a prog metal band, their first full-length is going to be a concept album. All right, next up we have Wilco, Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. The name Yankee Hotel Foxtrot comes from a sample they used from the Conet project, which was recordings of letter beacon broadcasts or CB radio broadcasts from like Soviet Russia spies around the US and Canada. This is probably my favorite Wilco album. It sounds like Wilco, which is, like I said earlier, it's kind of hit or miss for me, but this album is mostly hits. Let's see, Pot Kettle Black is a good song. Jesus Incorporated, or Jesus Etc., excuse me, is a good song. But yeah, recommend checking out Wilco Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. Next we have the best of Chet Atkins. So Chet Atkins is, I should say was, an amazing country bluegrass guitarist. He's kind of like one of the pioneers of that whole genre. This is basically a best of album. Yeah, I've listened to it a couple times. It's not something I'd want to listen to all the time, but it's still good. Alrighty, so next we have Dethklok, Death Album 2. Oh, shoot. So, obviously, Dethklok being from the show Metalocalypse, there's a good chance you know exactly who Dethklok is. Yeah, I mean, it's. I think this was made after the show came out, like after it finished, or at least it's music from like the later season. It's death metal. It's very comedic death metal. Alrighty. So now we have Wowie Zowie by Pavement. I don't know what would I consider Pavement. They're not shoegaze. They're not mathy indie stuff, I guess. Yeah. I think this is their second album. Honestly, I don't know which album this is. It's alright. I picked it up at Hastings when they went out of business, so I was just kind of grabbing random stuff, and I knew who Pavement was. Or at least I had an idea. I guess maybe comparable to Dinosaur Jr., that kind of realm. Alright. So here we have Sigur Rós. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce this album because, of course, Sigur Rós is from Iceland, and the song titles are mostly Icelandic. Ambient, post-rock, I guess. Very open and soundscapey. You might know who Sigur Rós is. This is an alright album, I guess. The problem with Sigur Rós is a lot of their stuff sounds the same, but in a good way. So if you like one Sigur Rós album, you'll probably like everything else. So here we have another Sigur Rós album. This one was actually given to me by a coworker. He had bought what he thought was the CD, and then off of Amazon, and then up shows this. He's like, well, I don't have a record player. You do. Here you go. So I was like, I'll take it. Let's see if I can attempt to read this. Agalius Berian? I don't know. Icelandic. Once again, if you like Sigur Rós, you probably like all of their albums. It's a good album, though. Alright. We're nearing the end. We've got a couple more left, but here we go. Trans-Siberian Orchestra, The Christmas Attic. So, Trans-Siberian Orchestra is, I don't know, symphonic rock, operatic rock. Most of their albums are like Christmas-based, obviously this one is. Their album, Beethoven's Last Night, isn't. It's their best one, though. This is, honestly, out of all the Christmas albums, I think this is their weakest. It still has some good songs. But their first one, Christmas Eve and Other Stories, and also The Lost Christmas Eve. Those are much better albums, and music in general. But of course, it's concept albums with storylines and everything. So, this one's signed by TSO West. They have 2 different touring bands when they go out live. One handles east side of the U.S. and the other handles west side of the U.S. Me living in the west side of the U.S. Get to see TSO West, which is led by the guitarist Al Petrelli, who, I mean, I wouldn't say he's one of the best guitarists. He's still an amazing guitarist, but he left a pretty big impact on me as a musician. So for that, I'm forever influenced. All right, The Cover Up by the Proto-Men. So this is an album of covers, ranging from, you have some Phil Collins, let's see, you have Bruce Springsteen, I don't know. Yeah. Honestly, I picked this one up simply for their In the Air Tonight cover. I saw them play it live, and before I bought this at PAX, and they nailed it so damn well. So there's kind of like a small storyline. This is allegedly, not really, but the lore. They were going to do music for a movie called The Cover Up. I don't know why they had to do that and why they couldn't just say Proto-Men does covers, but whatever. Yeah, it's covers of 80s pop songs. All right. Running out of space to put things. But I got 2 left. So here we have the latest Sci-Fi Dragons album, Canyon Eyes. I am disappointed by this album, honestly. There's 2 good songs. To me, there's 2 good songs off of it. But this is from their Patreon. They have a Patreon where it's kind of like they're doing a Kickstarter, but yeah, you get to see the songs as they come out. I didn't do that. I don't like checking out songs before albums come out, so I didn't listen to them, but I still donated because I love the band so much. Canyon Eyes, yeah, it's kind of their most disappointing album. But you know what isn't their most disappointing album? How about that for a transition? The Near Future, this is the last one we have. Let's put that over there. The Near Future is the best Sci-Fi Dragons release by miles, in my opinion. It takes everything that made like their first few releases, so Cool is Just a Number EP, the Breakdown EP, and then Kaboom. Those were their releases before this. It takes all the good stuff from that, gets rid of all the bad, and you have a 2-sided. It's a 2-sided record. Side 1 is just a concept musical suite about a boy who gets superpowers. It's a Tri-Gate, so I should probably just open it up like that, and you can see the full art, like so. And then side B is other songs, but the last song off of side B is like this 12-minute long. I wouldn't say it's prog, but it kind of hits that, has movements within it. I got this one from the Kickstarter. So Somewhere Over Here is my name. But yeah. And also the record comes with, in the leaflet is not a leaflet. It's actually a comic book. Kind of, I guess, call it a comic book. It has the storyline to the song The Near Future. But if you wanted to get into chiptune rock, I guess chiptune indie rock, I'd highly recommend this album from Sci-Fi Dragons, The Near Future. So yeah, there we go. That's my vinyl collection. This has probably been going on for over half an hour now, so good times. I have to do some editing because I'm pretty sure that my face poked into frame for a little bit. So yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what vinyls you have, and I hope you all have a good one. Cheers.